Good evening. I hope everybody can hear me. Yeah, I think we've had some great sessions and insights around data, around architecture, around what we can do with data. I think in this session, what you see on the slide, in supply chains. I mean, supply chain always has been the poorest cousin of data, as I call. We all possibly believe in doing stuff. Shop floor, factory, warehouse, port, transport, it's all about doing. And then I've spent around 25 years working what I call on the periphery of doing in terms of making things better in supply chain, in terms of processes, in terms of systems, in terms of change, in terms of technology sometimes. And the experience has been that in the last 5 years, whatever we are experiencing in the supply chain space, from people recognizing that there is something called data, that's a big win. People are looking at data now and understanding, okay, there is something called data which we need to start recognizing. And then comes Industry 4, which is now talking about, at a very basic level, Industry 4 is about what we call cyber-physical systems. You're connecting physical systems with technology and then trying to make sense out of it. So in that context, I've had an interesting 2.5 years delving into this space, and what I will possibly talk you through today is how we can make supply chains effective. How can we can make supply chain become a competitive advantage and not just a cost, or not just a means of moving things from one place to the other, or producing some stuff which the marketers want to sell, and drive some competitiveness. So the interesting thing which the other side of the organization's finance or marketing has taught us is that there is always value in data, but in supply chain we are beginning to realize that data can make dollars. Data can make a difference, and that's something which is coming to the fore more so over the last year or so, where we have seen certain kind of things happening, where at least everybody now realizes or understands that there is a need to look at data. There is a need to look at what data can do in terms of competitive advantage. And I think what I'll do is I'll start with an event which we all are familiar with. You are familiar with this one? Yeah? A big supply chain disaster, right? So this is an event which has happened. We all know about it. Now the interesting thing in today's time is that there's a lot of data which is available about this event. What you see here on the screen is a screenshot from a website called Marine Traffic, where you can see all the ships which are piled up around. So we all know, okay, where my product is. I can go and zoom in on what's happening with it. And then we have a company in New Zealand which has a ship which is stuck right in the middle there, which has a $250,000 of chilled perishables in that. Yeah. And obviously, where what's happening with your ship. This is a screenshot which has been taken possibly a year back, a day ago. So I exactly know what's happening with it, and I know what's going to happen with it, where it is going to move, how much time it is going to be stuck, and so on. But there's perishables inside, and I want to know what's happening with the product. There's a $250,000 worth of perishables inside. What's happening with it? Because it needs to get to Europe at a particular time where it can be put on the shelf and then can be sold. So I need to answer a few questions. Okay. how much delay would there be, what kind of predictive ETA it has, what is the condition because it's a perishable product, and then since there'll be a delay, what's the impact on my supply chain in terms of making the next lot which has to be supplied, and the impact on the factory and in terms of buying the raw material and so on and so forth. Now, if we have to answer all those questions out of the data which is currently available, which is, I have some data, I have an event which has happened, I have some data, I have some signals, but from there, I can't get any actionable insights to answer those questions, which is what a supply chain manager would want to answer. I want to tell the customer when will you get your product. I need to know whether my product is intact or safe. I need to know what's that which I need to do differently now, given that the ship is stuck. All that answers I cannot get out of the data which is available to me from available systems which are around me. And hence I cannot take the decisions which are based on data. And hence, that's how the supply chain has been over the years. I use my intuition, I make a few phone calls, I go back and look at certain kind of anecdotal experience which I have had and take a few decisions. That's the way things have been going on. And then I go back and understand that because of this kind of a situation which I have encountered as a supply chain professional over the years, I normally don't go and look at the data which comes from my existing system, from the ERP systems, from the transport systems, from the warehouse systems, maybe from my 3PL systems and so on. It's something which just gives me a post-mortem of what has happened, but doesn't give me much about, okay, what do I need to do for fixing things which are going to happen in future or which I have currently on hand. And then we start looking at what's happening now out of all the data which has been created, which is around us. And there are research which you can see here, which has reported that there's a new kind of organizations which are now coming into play. And we are not talking about technology startups. We are talking about established, listed, real life, what we call brick and mortar companies who are making use of data to drive improvement. And it's created a new category of competitive advantage, what's called insights-driven business. So on one side, we have our supply chain professionals, and on the other side, we have these kind of companies who have created advantage out of harnessing the data and drive improvement. You can see that the insights-driven businesses are growing at, Forrester's research says, growing at 8 to 10 times faster than the global economy, 27% growth rate, close to what startups are doing, and so on and so forth. Obviously, if we go and look across the universe, the companies which are leveraging this capability or this category of competitive advantage is still at an initial stage. And we have to ask the question, where is the gap? Where we have to do things differently. And we'll go back to this particular example, what I just shared with you, of where the gap is and what we need to do differently. So with this particular case, and this is a real life case which I'm talking to you about, which is happening as we talk, that there is a real-time visibility capability which is there in that particular container, which is exactly telling what's happening with my shipment, when it left the port, where it is at the moment. I can exactly see what the condition of my shipment is. So I know it's a perishable, it has to be maintained at a particular temperature. I get that visibility in real time. I know the tolerances which I have set and if something is going wrong, I would know about it. And I get all these insights in real time about my shipment. So now, where's the difference? The difference is that I'm now investing in a capability which can allow real-time ability to acquire data. And that's, I think, an important aspect which is now being recognized and realized by the domains in supply chain, where the need for acquiring data in real time and then overlaying it with existing data which we have to derive insights. Because most of the time in the supply chain space, the data availability has been stuff which has happened in the past. So as I say, that real-time data acquisitions is the missing link, which this example tells you about. And what I will very quickly take you through now, which is a little bit of an abstraction here, that with real-time data which you acquire, and now with the connectivity which is available, you can now take that data to the cloud. You can process that data through the capabilities, through the algorithms which are available, and start getting insights, and you can start driving certain kind of automation through that, which can then drive certain effective outcomes which you would want to achieve. So that's where the acquisition process can start driving performance improvement in your supply chain. And this kind of a capability can then be overlaid with your other strategic initiatives around being agile, being adaptive, being resilient, and start making companies more competitive. What I will now do, given that we have a little bit of time left, is to just take you through a few such capabilities which are now available, which you can use to start driving these data acquisition capabilities, which can be converted into actionable insights. Logistics, I've already spoken to you about. In the manufacturing space, there are capabilities which we are currently working with, where you can acquire data in real time through a simple set of sensing devices, which can be translated into real-time visibility of what your manufacturing performance is, and then start feeding that manufacturing performance to people who run the manufacturing setup in terms of real-time visibility of through the mobile phones, through alerts, through various kind of other such electronic capabilities which are available with us. In the warehouse, we can implement similar kind of data acquisition capabilities which can start driving insights. And in warehouses, you can deploy capabilities through, again, smart tags, which can make people safe by making sure that the ability to provide the outcomes which we need to achieve from a safety perspective, or we can use operational devices like scanning systems to get what is called a real-time view of what's happening in the warehouse, and then identify where I need to drive performance improvement in my warehouse operations. So these are the kind of capabilities which are now available, through which simple data acquisition can be done, can be consumed, can be transformed, and then you can get certain outcomes which you are looking at achieving in your supply chain performance. This is another interesting one, which I think some of the people in the room are aware about, where we are bringing this capability into the country, where you can put devices in your concrete and start getting in real time visibility of how your concrete maturity is happening, which is something which has not been experienced. In fact, when I go and talk to people, sometimes people don't believe it. They say, "Is it something real?" You put the sensor in concrete and it starts telling you what your concrete maturity is like, when it will be ready for striking, and you can plan your project effectively, which can drive performance improvement. So, in short, in a supply chain scenario, I think we are now sitting at a stage where if we make those data acquisition capabilities available in our work environment, we can then start consuming that data, overlaying it with existing systems to get insights which can then drive effective decisions and produce outcomes which we want to achieve. And I think that's where I can see the future or the intelligent supply chain is heading towards. Thank you.